The birthday candles were still smoking when my wife destroyed my life. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I'm Rick Harlan, 34 years old, and I fix cars for a living. Not glamorous, but honest work that keeps my hands busy and my mind sharp. I've always been good at reading engines and people. Both make noise when something's wrong. Tonight, something was definitely wrong. Our living room buzzed with fake laughter and expensive wine. Allison had invited her usual crew, Jenna from her PR firm, all sharp edges and designer clothes, Mindy, the perpetually single party girl who treated other people's relationships like entertainment, and Cammy, quiet as a church mouse but always recording everything on her phone. "Rick, honey, come sit down," Allison called from the couch, her voice honey-sweet but with an edge I'd been hearing more often lately. She wore the black dress I'd bought her for our anniversary, ironic considering what was coming. I settled into my recliner, the one she always complained about but I'd refused to replace. Some battles you pick, others you save for when they matter. "So," Jenna began, swirling her wine like she was about to deliver a toast, "we've been talking." The way she said "we" made my stomach clench. In my experience, when women say, "we've been talking," some poor bastard is about to get his world rearranged. Turns out, I was that bastard. Allison looked at her friends, then at me, her blue eyes bright with something that might have been excitement or cruelty. Hard to tell the difference sometimes. "Rick, my friends and I decided you're not my type anymore." She paused, letting that sink in like motor oil into concrete. "I think I should go back to my ex." The room went silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator and Mindy's barely suppressed giggle. Cammy's phone was pointed right at me, recording my humiliation for posterity. I sat there for a moment, processing. Not the words, those were clear enough, but the sheer audacity of it. The group decision, the public announcement, the casual cruelty wrapped up like a birthday gift. "Well," I said finally, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest, "I appreciate you ladies taking a vote on my marriage. Very democratic of you." Jenna's smile faltered slightly. She'd expected tears, maybe begging, not sarcasm. "Rick, don't be like that," Allison said, her voice taking on that whiny tone she used when she wasn't getting her way fast enough. "You know we haven't been happy." "We?" I stood up slowly, all 6 feet of me unfolding from that ratty recliner. Funny, I thought I was part of we. Turns out I was wrong about a lot of things. Mindy leaned forward, practically vibrating with excitement. "Oh, this is getting good." "You think so?" I looked at each of them in turn. These women who'd invaded my home, drunk my beer, and voted on my life like it was a reality show. Here's something that might interest you even more. I pulled out my phone, scrolled to a specific photo, and held it up so they could all see. It was Brett Daniels' Mercedes, parked in my driveway last Tuesday afternoon while I was supposedly at work. "Recognize this car, Allison?" Her face went white. "Rick, I can explain." "Oh, I'm sure you can. You're good at explanations. Like how you explained to your girlfriends here about our private life, about my shortcomings, about how Brett was so much better in bed." The silence was deafening now. Even Mindy had stopped giggling. "How did you—" Allison started. "No, honey, I fix things for a living. That includes security systems. Our bedroom has had a camera for 6 months." That wasn't true, but the look of pure terror on her face was worth the lie. Cammy actually dropped her phone. "You're bluffing," Jenna said, but her voice shook. "Am I?" I smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. "Tell you what, ladies. Since you're so fond of group decisions, let me make one of my own. Get out of my house. Now." "Rick, please." Allison stood up, reaching for me. "We can talk about this." "Talk?" I stepped back from her touch. "Like you talked to your friends about leaving me? Like you talked to Brett about coming over while I was at work?" "No, Allison. We're done talking." Jenna grabbed her purse, suddenly eager to leave. "Come on, girls. This is getting weird." "Wait." My voice cut through their scrambling like a blade. "Allison stays." They froze. "You wanted to make this public? Fine. But you and I are going to finish this conversation, alone." Mindy looked like she wanted to argue, but something in my expression changed her mind. They filed out like guilty children, Cammy clutching her phone like a lifeline. The door clicked shut, and suddenly the house felt enormous and empty, just me and the woman I'd thought I'd spend my life with. Allison sank back onto the couch, tears starting to flow. Real ones, I thought, though with her you could never be sure. "Rick, I'm sorry, it happened." It happened, I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Like the weather, like an accident. You made choices, Allison, a lot of them, and now you get to live with the consequences. What are you going to do? I looked at her sitting there, makeup smeared, designer dress wrinkled, looking nothing like the confident woman who'd just destroyed our marriage for her friend's entertainment. I'm going to give you exactly what you asked for, I said quietly. Freedom. But it's going to cost you everything. She looked up at me with those blue eyes, and for a moment I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. The birthday candles are out, Allison, and so is the last bit of mercy I had left for you. The house felt different after they left. Not emptier. Hell, it felt fuller somehow, like the truth had finally moved in and taken up residence. I poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon and sat in my recliner, staring at the birthday cake nobody had bothered to cut. 34 years old, and I was starting over. Allison had locked herself in our bedroom. Former bedroom, I corrected myself, and I could hear her on the phone, probably calling Brett or one of her enablers. Let her. I had work to do. The first thing I noticed was her phone, sitting on the kitchen counter where she'd left it in her panic to escape upstairs. Allison was surgically attached to that device. Leaving it behind was like a surgeon forgetting his hands. I picked it up. No lock screen. She'd always been careless about security. Said she had nothing to hide. Funny how that worked out. The text messages were a goldmine of betrayal. Group chat after group chat, going back months. The girls planning my downfall like a military operation. Allison feeding them details about our marriage, our finances, our private moments. Jenna. Just tell him you need space. Men are stupid. He'll believe it. Mindy. Brett's loaded. Way better than some grease monkey. Cammy. I got video of him fixing the sink shirtless. So gross, LOL? Allison. Rick thinks I'm at book club. Really at Brett's. This is so exciting. I scrolled back further, my anger crystallizing into something colder and more dangerous. They'd been planning this for months, treating my life like their personal soap opera. Allison had shared photos of our bedroom, complained about my blue-collar stench, even joked about how easy it would be to trade up. But the real treasure was in her private messages with Brett. Brett. Can't wait to get you out of that dump. My place has a view. Allison. Soon. The girls think I should do it on his birthday. More dramatic. Brett. Cruel. I like it. My hands shook as I screenshotted everything. Not from hurt. That had burned away already. From pure, focused rage. A knock at the door interrupted my digital archaeology. I glanced at the clock. 11:30 p.m. Only one person would show up this late. Hey, Rick. Pete Kowalski stood on my porch, holding 2 beers and wearing the concerned expression he usually reserved for blown transmissions. Pete owned the auto shop where I worked, but more importantly, he'd been my best friend since high school. Heard there was some excitement over here, he said, inviting himself in. Mrs. Weathers called me. Mrs. Weathers was our 70-something neighbor who treated the neighborhood like her personal surveillance network. Nothing happened on Maple Street without her knowing about it. Let me guess, I said, accepting the beer. She saw Allison's friends leaving in a hurry? That, and she wanted me to tell you something interesting. Pete settled onto the couch, avoiding the spot where Allison had delivered her verdict. She's been keeping track of visitors while you're at work. That fancy Mercedes has been here 6 times in the last month, always Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. I showed him the phone. I know. Pete whistled low as he scrolled through the messages. Jesus, Rick, they really did a number on you. They tried to. I took a long pull of beer. But here's the thing about engines, Pete. When they blow up, they usually take the whole car with them. What are you thinking? Before I could answer, footsteps on the stairs announced Allison's return. She changed into jeans and a sweater, her face scrubbed clean of makeup and tears. She looked young and vulnerable, which I knew was calculated. Rick, we need to talk. No, we don't. I held up her phone. But you need this back. Lots of important messages on here. She reached for it, but I pulled it back. Actually, let me read you my favorite one. This is from yesterday. Can't wait to see Rick's face when we tell him. Jenna says I should record it for the group chat. Did you record it, Allison? Her face crumpled. I never sent that video to anyone. Yet. I looked at Pete. She never sent it yet. Rick, please, I made a mistake, a huge mistake. But we can fix this. Fix this? I stood up, and she instinctively stepped back. You didn't make a mistake, Allison. You made a choice, multiple choices, over months, with an audience. I'll end it with Brett. I'll cut off my friends. Whatever you want. What I want, I said quietly, is for you to understand something. You wanted to play games? Fine. But I'm better at games than you are. I fix broken things for a living, and I'm very good at taking them apart first. Pete cleared his throat. Maybe I should go. No, stay. I never took my eyes off Allison. She's the one leaving, aren't you, honey? Going to Brett's place? Or maybe another group meeting to plan the next phase? Where am I supposed to go? Not my problem anymore. I tossed her the phone. But wherever you go, remember this. I know everything now. Every lie, every betrayal, every cruel little joke, and I'm going to make sure everyone else knows too. She caught the phone, her hands shaking. You wouldn't. Try me. After she left, Pete and I sat in silence for a while, drinking beer and staring at the abandoned birthday cake. So what's the plan? Pete finally asked. I smiled, and this time it felt genuine. You know that charity auction next weekend? The one where Brett's donating his Mercedes for a test drive prize? Yeah? I think it's time I showed some community spirit. Pete grinned. Now you're talking my language. The truth was, I was done being the victim in their little drama. Time to flip the script and see how they liked being the entertainment. Saturday morning came gray and drizzly, perfect weather for what I had planned. Pete and I loaded his truck with tools and drove toward Clearwater Lake, where Brett Daniels kept his family's summer house. The same place Allison was spending the weekend thinking things through. According to her social media, which she'd foolishly left public, she was having a girls' retreat to process recent changes. The photos showed her and the squad drinking mimosas on Brett's deck, toasting their brave friend's new journey. Made me sick. You sure about this plan? Pete asked as we pulled into the woods near the lake house. Seems like a lot of work for a prank. It's not a prank. I shouldered my tool bag. It's an education. Brett's Mercedes sat in the circular driveway like a monument to his ego. Midnight blue, pristine, worth more than I made in 2 years. He'd bought it to impress people, which made what I was about to do even sweeter. The modification took 20 minutes. Nothing illegal, nothing permanent, just a creative use of the car's existing electronics and some aftermarket additions. When I was done, the Mercedes looked exactly the same, but it would never be the same. Phase 1 complete, I told Pete as we retreated to our observation point in the trees. Now we wait. We didn't wait long. The lake house erupted in activity around noon. Through my binoculars, I watched Allison and her friends stumble onto the deck, clearly already drunk despite the early hour. Brett emerged from the house wearing swim trunks and a polo shirt, looking like a country club refugee. Jenna was holding court, gesturing wildly with her mimosa glass. I couldn't hear the words, but I could guess the content. Probably coaching Allison on her next moves, treating my destroyed marriage like a strategic game. There, Pete pointed. They're heading for the car. Brett was leading the group toward his Mercedes, keys jingling in his hand, probably planning to take them for a ride, show off his expensive toy and his expensive girlfriend. He pressed the key fob. The car's alarm system came to life, but not the way he expected. Instead of the usual chirp, the horn began blaring in a pattern. 3 long honks, 3 short, 3 long again. SOS in Morse code. But that wasn't the best part. The car's electronic display, which Brett had upgraded to show custom messages, now flashed a single word in bright red letters. Cheater. Brett fumbled with the key fob, trying to shut it off, but I'd programmed a delay. For 5 full minutes, his precious Mercedes would announce his sins to the entire lake. Oh, this is beautiful, Pete whispered, watching through his own binoculars as Brett's face went purple with rage. The horn finally stopped, but the damage was done. Other lake house owners had come out to investigate the noise, and they all got a good look at the message flashing on Brett's dashboard. I watched Allison's face through the binoculars. She looked mortified, which was exactly what I was going for. But I wasn't done yet. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Meet me at the old drive-in theater on Route 9. Come alone. C. Cammy, the quiet one who recorded everything. Change of plans, I told Pete. Drop me off at the drive-in. I think our little demonstration got someone's attention. The abandoned drive-in theater had been closed for 15 years, but the screen still stood like a monument to better times. Cammy's Honda Civic was parked in the front row, and she was sitting on the hood, phone in hand as always. Rick. She looked nervous, which was smart. After what I'd just pulled, she had every reason to be. Cammy, enjoying the show at the lake? She held up her phone. I recorded the whole thing. Brett's car, Allison freaking out, everything. Good for you. Planning to share it with the group chat? Actually, no. She slid off the hood, facing me directly for maybe the first time ever. I want to make a deal. That caught my attention. I'm listening. I know you think we're all terrible people, and maybe you're right, but I wasn't part of the planning. I just watched. And recorded. Yeah, and recorded. But Rick, there's stuff you don't know. Stuff that's going to make you even angrier. I waited. This whole thing, the affair, the public humiliation, it wasn't just Allison's idea. It was a bet. The world tilted slightly. A what? Jenna bet Allison she couldn't pull off a perfect divorce. You know, get the guy to leave, keep the house, move on to someone richer. She's been coaching her for months. My hands clenched into fists. How much? $5,000. Winner takes all. $5,000. They destroyed my life for the cost of a used car. There's more, Cammy continued. Brett's in on it too. He gets off on stealing other men's wives. It's like a hobby for him. Jenna introduced them at a party and suggested the whole thing. Why are you telling me this? Cammy looked down at her phone, then back at me. Because I'm tired of being their audience, and because I have something you need to see. She showed me her phone screen. It was a video, clearly shot through a window. Allison and Brett in bed, but that wasn't the shocking part. The shocking part was the date stamp, 3 weeks before my birthday. I filmed this the night of Jenna's housewarming party, while you were home fixing their car trouble, remember? I remembered. Allison had called, crying about being stranded. I'd driven across town in the rain to help her friends, never suspecting she was miles away in Brett's bed. They've been planning this for months, Rick. The birthday announcement was just the finale. I stared at the video, watching my wife betray me in high definition, and something inside me shifted. Not broke, I was past broken. This was something colder, more focused. What do you want, Cammy? I want out of their group, out of their games. But I need protection. If they find out I talked to you, they won't. I looked at her carefully. But I'm going to need more than just videos. I'm going to need you to help me finish this. She nodded slowly. What do you need me to do? I smiled, and for the first time in days, it felt genuine. Help me give them the ending they deserve. The Clearwater Summer Festival was the biggest event of the year in our little town, which wasn't saying much. Local bands, craft booths, and enough gossip to fuel the rumor mill until Christmas. Perfect venue for what I had planned. Cammy had done her job perfectly. Over the past week, she'd been strategically leaking information to key people. Mrs. Henderson at the post office, who knew everyone's business, Tom Bradley, who ran the hardware store and never met a story he couldn't improve, and most importantly, Sarah Chen, who wrote the local newspaper's social column. Nothing illegal, nothing slanderous. Just carefully edited truth, served up in bite-sized pieces that the town could digest and discuss. By festival day, everyone knew that Allison Harlan had left her husband for a rich out-of-towner, that there had been a public scene at a birthday party, and that certain people had been seen coming and going from certain houses at suspicious times. Small-town gossip was a precision instrument when you knew how to use it. I arrived at the festival around noon, wearing my best jeans and the flannel shirt Allison always said made me look too blue-collar. Today, that was exactly the look I wanted. Pete had saved me a spot at the beer tent, which offered a perfect view of the main stage and the craft booths where Allison and her friends were scheduled to appear. Jenna had organized a booth for their PR firm, complete with balloons and business cards. There they are, Pete nodded toward the booth, where Allison was arranging brochures with shaking hands. She looked terrible, pale, thin, like she hadn't been sleeping. Good. Jenna stood beside her, all fake smiles and designer sunglasses, playing the supportive friend while counting her winnings. Mindy was flirting with some college kid at the next booth over, already bored with the drama she'd helped create. Brett arrived fashionably late, driving a rental car since his Mercedes was still in the shop getting its electronics repaired. He strutted over to the booth like he owned the place, which probably wasn't far from how he saw it. Showtime, I muttered, and walked toward their booth. The conversations around me died as people noticed where I was headed. Word had spread, and everyone wanted to see what Rick Harlan would do when he came face to face with his wife's new life. Allison. I stopped in front of the booth, hands in my pockets, voice calm and friendly. Nice setup you have here. She looked up, and I saw fear flash across her face. Rick, what are you doing here? It's a public festival. I'm being public. I picked up one of their brochures. Harlan Public Relations. Interesting name choice. Planning to keep it? Jenna stepped forward, all sharp edges and attitude. Rick, I think you should leave. Allison doesn't want to talk to you. Really? That's funny, because she's been talking about me plenty. Haven't you, honey? A small crowd was gathering now, pretending to browse the nearby booths while straining to hear every word. Mrs. Henderson had her phone out, probably texting updates to her network of informants. Brett appeared at Allison's side, puffing out his chest like a territorial rooster. "You heard her. Move along, grease monkey." I looked at him for a long moment, this man who'd helped destroy my marriage for sport. "Brett Daniels, how's the Mercedes running?" His face darkened. "You son of a bitch. I know that was you." "Me? I'm just a simple mechanic. What would I know about expensive German engineering?" "You sabotaged my car." "Did I? That's a serious accusation. You should probably call the police." I pulled out my phone. "Want me to dial for you?" He stepped closer, close enough that I could smell his expensive cologne mixed with nervous sweat. "You think you're clever?" "I think I'm thorough." I looked around at the growing crowd, then back at him. "Tell me, Brett, do you always go after married women, or was my wife special?" "Rick, stop!" Allison pleaded, but her voice was weak, defeated. "Stop what? Having a conversation? I thought you liked public announcements. Remember my birthday party?" The crowd was getting bigger now, sensing drama like sharks smelling blood. I could see phones coming out, people recording what was clearly going to be the festival's main entertainment. "You want to know what's funny?" I continued, my voice carrying to the back of the crowd. "I actually thought it was about me, thought maybe I wasn't good enough, wasn't exciting enough, but then I found out it was all just a game." Jenna's face went white. "Rick, you don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I?" I pulled out my own phone, scrolled to a screenshot of their group chat. "Want me to read some highlights? I've got months of material." "You went through my phone?" Allison's voice cracked. "You left it on my kitchen counter, in my house, that I pay for." I looked at the crowd, playing to them now. Funny thing about private messages. They're only private until someone decides to share them. Brett grabbed my arm. "That's enough." Big mistake. I looked down at his hand on my arm, then back up at his face. "I'd move that if I were you." "Or what?" "Or everyone here is going to see what happens when a trust fund baby tries to intimidate someone who works for a living." He squeezed harder, trying to make me back down in front of all these people. Poor Brett. He'd never learned the difference between confidence and stupidity. Well, I didn't hit him, didn't need to. I just grabbed his wrist and applied pressure to a specific point, a trick I'd learned from my cousin Larry, who was a cop. Brett's hand opened involuntarily, and he stumbled backward, knocking over a display of brochures. The crowd murmured appreciatively. Nothing like watching a bully get handled. "Like I said," I announced to the audience, "I'm thorough and patient. But mostly, I'm done being entertainment for people who think other people's lives are just games to play." I looked at Allison one last time. She was crying now. Real tears. Finally understanding that her actions had consequences beyond her little bubble of friends and schemes. "Enjoy the festival," I told them, and walked away. Behind me, I could hear the crowd dispersing, already spreading the story to every corner of the festival. By evening, it would be all over town. By tomorrow, it would be legend. My phone buzzed with a text from Cammie. "Phase 2 complete. You should see Jenna's face right now." I smiled and headed back to the beer tent, where Pete was waiting with a fresh drink and a huge grin. "That," he said, "was beautiful." "That," I replied, "was just the warm-up." 3 days after the festival, Allison's world started crumbling in earnest. It began with her job. Cammie had done exactly what we'd discussed, slipping an anonymous envelope onto the desk of Margaret Winters, the owner of Harlan Public Relations. Inside was a carefully curated selection of screenshots showing Allison's group chat messages, including several where she'd mocked the agency's clients and shared confidential information for her friends' entertainment. Margaret called me personally. "Rick, I'm sorry about what happened to your marriage," she said, her voice tight with controlled anger. "But I wanted you to know that Allison no longer works here. What she did was completely unacceptable." "I appreciate the call, Margaret. There's something else. I'm changing the name of the agency. It was never meant to be associated with this kind of behavior." So much for Harlan Public Relations. The second blow came from an unexpected source, Brett's own family. Turns out his parents, who owned half the real estate in the county, didn't appreciate their son's name being associated with public scenes and marriage-wrecking scandals. Brett found himself suddenly reassigned to their Portland office, effective immediately. But the final piece of my plan required a more personal touch. I was working under the hood of a pickup truck when Allison appeared at Pete's garage. She looked terrible, hollow-eyed, thin, wearing clothes I didn't recognize. Probably borrowed from one of her friends, since she'd been couch surfing since I'd changed the locks on our house. Rick, we need to talk. I didn't look up from the engine. No, we don't. Please, 5 minutes. You had 5 years of marriage to talk to me. You chose to talk to everyone else instead. She moved closer, and I could smell desperation on her like cheap perfume. I lost my job. I heard. Brett's moving to Portland. Good for him. I have nowhere to go. Finally, I straightened up and looked at her. Really looked at her. The woman I'd married, planned a future with, loved despite her flaws. She was a stranger now, carved hollow by her own choices. What do you want from me, Allison? I want to come home. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Home? You mean the house you signed over to me last month? Her face went white. What? I wiped my hands on a shop rag, taking my time. Remember that stack of papers you signed when we were working things out? You thought they were counseling forms. They were actually property transfer documents. That's not legal. I was emotional, confused. You were sober and witnessed. Larry notarized them. My cousin, the cop, had been very thorough about making sure everything was legitimate. You can't do this to me. I didn't do this to you. You did this to you. I just made sure there were consequences. She sank onto a nearby stool, the fight going out of her. What am I supposed to do? Learn. Grow. Figure out who you are when you're not performing for an audience. I turned back to the truck. But do it somewhere else. Rick, please. I know I hurt you, but hurt me. I spun around, and she flinched at the expression on my face. Allison, you didn't hurt me. You destroyed me. For entertainment, for a bet, for $5,000. Her mouth fell open. How did you know about the bet? I know everything. Every cruel joke, every lie, every moment you chose to humiliate me for your friend's amusement. I stepped closer, and she shrank back. Did you really think there wouldn't be consequences? I never meant for it to go this far. You never meant to get caught. There's a difference. The garage door chimed as someone entered. Jenna, looking as desperate as Allison, but trying to hide it behind her usual attitude. Rick, thank God you're here. We need to talk about this situation. What situation would that be, Jenna? This vendetta you're on. It's gone too far. Allison lost her job, Brett's been transferred, and now there are rumors about my business practices. I looked at her with genuine curiosity. Are the rumors true? That's not the point. Actually, that's exactly the point. See, I'm not spreading rumors. I'm just making sure the truth gets the same audience you gave your lies. Jenna's mask slipped, showing the calculating woman underneath. What do you want? Money? We can pay you to stop this. You think this is about money? Everything's about money, Rick. Name your price. I set down my tools and gave her my full attention. My price is simple. I want you to understand what you did. You took a man's life, his marriage, his trust, and you turned it into a game. For money, for fun, because you were bored. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. I pulled out my phone, scrolled to a specific screenshot. Want me to read your exact words? This is better than reality TV. Can't wait to see him break. Jenna's face crumpled. I was drunk when I wrote that. You were honest when you wrote that. Finally. Allison stood up, swaying slightly. What do you want from us, Rick? What will it take to end this? I looked at both of them, these women who treated my life like their personal entertainment and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. I want you to live with what you've done. I want you to understand that actions have consequences, and some things can't be fixed with tears and apologies. I picked up my tools. I want you to leave me alone and never come back. And if we don't? Jenna asked, some of her old defiance returning. I smiled, and it was not a nice smile. Then you'll find out what happens when someone really decides to destroy your life. Professionally, personally, completely. They left without another word. Pete emerged from the office, where he'd been watching the whole thing. Think they'll stay away? They'll try to regroup first, plan some kind of comeback, but it won't work. How can you be sure? Because I'm not done yet. My phone buzzed with a text from Cammie. Package delivered. Check your email. I opened my laptop and found a video file. Security footage from Brett's lake house showing Allison and her friends celebrating my destruction the night after my birthday. Laughing, toasting, mocking everything I'd ever shared with my wife, but more importantly, it showed them planning their next move. Apparently, I was supposed to have a breakdown that would justify Allison taking half of everything in the divorce. Too bad for them, I'd never been the breaking kind. I forwarded the video to my lawyer, my cousin Larry, and Margaret Winters. Then I sat back and waited for the final act to begin. The best revenge, I'd learned, wasn't getting even. It was making sure the truth had consequences. The Crooked Lantern was packed for my divorce party. I'd sent out invitations the old-fashioned way, word of mouth through Mrs. Henderson's gossip network. Rick Harlan's celebrating his freedom at the Lantern Saturday night. Everyone welcome. The whole town showed up. I'd chosen the Lantern specifically because it was Allison's least favorite place. Too blue-collar, too honest, too real for her refined tastes. The irony was perfect. Pete had decorated the back room with balloons and a banner that read, "Happy Independence Day." The bar was stocked, the music was loud, and the mood was festive. Everyone loves a good comeback story, especially when the underdog wins. I was holding court near the pool table, telling the story of Brett's Mercedes malfunction to an appreciative audience, when the door opened and Allison walked in. The conversations died like someone had thrown a switch. She'd dressed carefully, the blue dress I'd always loved, her hair done the way I liked it, makeup applied to hide the damage of the past few weeks. She looked like she was trying to resurrect the woman I'd fallen in love with. Too little, too late. "Rick?" She approached slowly, aware that every eye in the place was on her. "Can we talk? Privately?" "Nothing private between us anymore, Allison. You made sure of that." I gestured to the crowd. "Say whatever you came to say." She looked around at the hostile faces, the people who'd once smiled and waved when she drove through town. Now they watched her like she was a stranger who'd overstayed her welcome. "I want to apologize, publicly, for what I did to you, to our marriage." "Okay, I'm listening." She took a shaky breath. "I was stupid and selfish. I let my friends influence me and I made terrible choices. I hurt the best man I've ever known, and I'm sorry." The crowd murmured appreciatively. It was a good apology, heartfelt, specific, humble. Under different circumstances, it might have even worked. "Thank you," I said simply. Apology noted. She waited for more, for some sign of forgiveness or reconciliation. When it didn't come, desperation crept into her voice. "That's it? After 5 years of marriage, that's all you have to say?" "What else would you like me to say, Allison? That it's okay? That we can work it out? That your little game didn't matter?" "It wasn't a game." The words hung in the air like smoke. Everyone in the room knew she was lying, and she knew they knew. I pulled out my phone, scrolled to a familiar screenshot. "Want me to read the group chat where you and Jenna planned this whole thing? The one where you called it Operation Upgrade?" Her face went white. "Rick, please. Or maybe the video from Brett's lake house where you're all laughing about how easy it was to fool me." "There's no video?" "Cammy took it. Security camera. High definition. Would you like me to play it for everyone?" The fight went out of her then, her shoulders sagging in defeat. "What do you want from me?" "Nothing. Absolutely nothing." I looked around the room, addressing the crowd as much as her. "See, that's what you never understood, Allison. I don't want revenge. I just want truth. I want consequences. I want you to live in the world you created." The door opened again, and Brett walked in, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. He'd driven down from Portland, probably at Allison's desperate request, to help salvage something from the wreckage. "Rick," he nodded stiffly. "I think we should talk. Man to man?" "Sure, talk." "What happened between Allison and me? It got out of hand." "We never meant to hurt you?" I laughed, and the sound was sharp enough to cut glass. "You never meant to hurt me? Brett, hurting me was the whole point. It was the game. Take the blue-collar guy's wife. Humiliate him publicly. Prove that money and status trump everything else." "It wasn't like that." "It was exactly like that." I looked at him carefully. This man who'd helped destroy my marriage for sport. "Tell me, Brett, how many other wives have you stolen? How many other marriages have you wrecked for fun?" He didn't answer, but his silence was answer enough. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued, my voice carrying to every corner of the room. "You're going to leave. Both of you, you're going to go back to Portland or wherever people like you go when you've worn out your welcome, and you're going to stay away from me, my town, and my life." "And if we don't?" Brett asked, trying to reclaim some authority. I smiled, and it was the coldest expression I'd ever worn. "Then I'll finish what you started. See, you thought you were playing a game with some stupid mechanic who wouldn't fight back, but you were wrong about me. I don't just fix things, Brett. I also know how to break them, permanently." The room was dead silent now, everyone hanging on every word. "I know about your family's business practices, the zoning violations, the tax shortcuts, the under-the-table deals. I know about your gambling debts and your cocaine habit. I know about the 3 other married women you've been helping through difficult times. Brett's face had gone gray. You're bluffing. Am I? Want to test that theory? Because I've got nothing left to lose, and you've got everything. He looked around the room, seeing nothing but hostile faces and recording phones, and finally understood that he was beaten. Come on, Allison. We're leaving. But Allison wasn't ready to surrender yet. She turned to the crowd, playing for sympathy one last time. You all act like you're so perfect, but you don't know what it was like being married to him. The silence, the judgment, the way he made me feel small. The way I made you feel small? I stepped closer, and she backed away. Allison, I worked 2 jobs to pay for your college. I fixed your friends' cars for free. I supported your dreams even when they changed every 6 months. I loved you despite your flaws, and you repaid me by making those flaws my fault. That's not... I have the recordings, Allison. Every cruel joke, every mocking comment, every time you told your friends how much you hated your life with me. While I was working to build our future, you were planning my humiliation. She was crying now, but the tears looked artificial under the bar's harsh lights. I never hated you. No, you just hated everything about me. My job, my friends, my family, my dreams, everything that made me who I am. I looked around the room one last time. But here's the beautiful part. I don't hate you, Allison. I don't hate any of you. I just don't care about you anymore. That hit her harder than any insult could have. She'd expected anger, hurt, even violence. Indifference was worse than all of them combined. The divorce papers are on the bar, I continued. Everything's already divided. You get your freedom and a fresh start. I get everything else. She picked up the papers with shaking hands, scanning the settlement terms. This can't be legal. I get nothing? You get exactly what you brought to the marriage. Nothing. Everything else was built by the man you decided wasn't good enough for you. Brett took her arm, trying to lead her toward the door, but she pulled away. This isn't over, Rick. Yes, it is. I raised my beer to the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you my ex-wife and her boyfriend. May they get exactly what they deserve. The room erupted in cheers and applause as Brett finally managed to drag Allison toward the exit. She looked back once, her face a mask of rage and defeat, then disappeared into the night. The party continued until closing time, but I slipped out early, needing air and space to process what had just happened. I walked home through the quiet streets of my town, past houses where people I'd known my whole life were sleeping peacefully. At my front door, my door now, legally and completely, I stopped and looked back at the life I was leaving behind. The marriage, the betrayal, the pain, all of it was finished now. Tomorrow I'd start building something new, something honest, something mine. I unlocked the door and stepped inside, closing it firmly behind me. In the distance, I could hear the sound of a car driving away, carrying my past into the darkness where it belonged.